This Commodore 64 cassette of Frogger has one of the greatest stories I've probably ever told. You're not going to want to miss this one. Stick around.
Let's go into the Bar Monroe world.
Hi everyone, Shane R. Monroe here, and if you've followed my videos and my escapades at the Vintage Computer Festival, you know I picked up 3 amazing classic 8-bit titles on cassette. Blue Max, easily one of my favorite games. Ford Apocalypse, definitely one of my favorite games. And Frogger, the Chuck Benton Frogger. This is the official Frogger from Sega, licensed by Sierra Online. And this is my favorite version of Frogger. I mean, on any non-arcade platform, the music's right, everything's great. But we're not here to talk about Frogger, the game per se. You're dying to know whether or not these work, and even more importantly, these two guys, which have absolutely no labeling whatsoever in terms of what system they support, are these even Commodore 64 tapes? If they're not, what are they? Could be Atari 800 tapes, right? You just don't know.
Could be lunch meat, could be peaches. Who knows?
Now, the good news is this Frogger specifically says right on here, Commodore 64 version. So we know we've got one Commodore 64 tape. If it works, who knows? But I still have all 3 of them. Before we get to the really good part of the story, let me just tell you something about these 2 tapes. As you probably figured out, these are both Atari-based cassettes. These are not C64 cassettes. How do I know? Because they won't load. But Shane, doesn't that just maybe mean that your tape heads are out of alignment or something like that? No. I can assure you that these are not Commodore 64 tapes. And I can prove it to you by dropping this into my boom box so you can hear. I'm going to put in Blue Max, and I'm going to play a little bit of Blue Max on an audio cassette player. There, can you hear it? That's what the Atari tape sounds like loading. I know what you're saying. Well, doesn't the Commodore 64 one sound just like that? The answer is no. Now that kind of sounds familiar. Yeah, not the same thing, is it? Definitely 2 different types of cassettes. And yeah, and we know that this one's a Commodore 64 game because it says Commodore 64. The other ones, unfortunately, are Atari games. So with that being said, right, we can put these guys to the side. Now, you know what I'm going to do with these, of course, don't you? I'm going to go and get the PRG versions of Blue Max and Ford Apocalypse, and I'm going to overwrite these Atari versions with the Commodore 64 version. After all, it doesn't say Atari on here. It'll be just like having the original. But I promised you a fantastic story, and you're going to get it. So if you know anything about cassette-based games, now, by the way, these are NTSC US versions. These don't have fast loaders or Nova loaders or Ocean loaders or none of that stuff. This is literally the slowest possible cassettes you can ever get. And a lot of times, because of the wear and tear, I mean, this game is, what is the date on this thing? 1981. 81, folks. This thing's like 45 years old. The fact that we even can get one of these is amazing. If it worked, it'd even be better. So let me show you exactly what happens when you try to load this game. I know what you're thinking, Shane, that doesn't sound good. So I'm going to hit Commodore Run Stop. I know you can't see it, but it's off screen. As you can see, when I hit play and hit Commodore Run Stop, you can hear now in the background, it is loading the game's first piece. Get down there where you can hear it. Okay, there it is. It's finding the first title. And right on the screen, found Frogger. Sweet, we're in good shape. So far, so good. We hit space to continue, or the Commodore key. And look what happens. Ready for this? It's like prompting you for something. Is this like a copy protection check? How come it's not asking me for a page in the manual or something? So you're like, Frogger? That's not it. Run again, and you still get the question mark. I don't know. Something? No. How about nothing? Different numbers. What the hell's going on? So I'm like, okay, so what's going on here? I don't get it. What are we missing here? So I did list, right? Because that's what you do when you type run and you want to see what the program's doing. Well, there's some code. Well, wait, what the living crap is this? Okay, so it's very possible, and this is done a lot in the old days, is they have some way of obfuscating basic code. So if you try to do what I just did, you can't see the code, so therefore you can't crack it or bypass it. So I did this over and over and over again. I broke out a second tape drive. I tried side B, which also has it on there with the exact same results. Now, I'm thinking that's not Frogger, right? Because that took like 2 seconds to load. So how clever would I be if I loaded the next program on the tape, right? I bet there's another program. That has to be a load. Oh, there it is. You hear it? There has to be another file on this tape. Now remember, there's no copy protection, not in the traditional sense. Anyway, there might have been type-in protection. Oh, look, there it is. There is another file. Now, it's going to take 15 minutes to load that file. And guess what happens at the end? The question mark. The exact same thing that happened when I loaded it from scratch. So I'm thinking to myself, this has to be some sort of a copy protection, or maybe somebody overwrote it with something. So I tried doing load Frogger. I actually dumped the tape to a tape file, so I didn't have to constantly play with the cassette. But I didn't know if the cassette was bad or what. But the fact that it does the exact same thing on either side of the tape means if somebody was looking to mess with people, they would have had to go out of their way to mess with them on both sides. So what does one do when you think maybe, just maybe, we're talking about a copy protection here? It's obviously prompting me for something. It wants me to enter something. So what does it want me to enter? What do I need to provide to this program in order to get the damn thing to run? Now, there was no manual with this. There's nothing on here that tells me anything special. A lot of games, you'd have to type in like SYS 49152 or 32768 to start the game. Well, not so here. There's nothing on there. And again, like I said, what is it? What am I supposed to type in? So guess what I did? I spent 3.5 hours with Claude AI dumping binaries, doing memory snapshots from action replay, feeding it op commands, everything that I could do, trying to figure out what it needed. And by the way, there's two things that you need to know about AI if you don't already know. One, they always want to be right. And two, they always want to be helpful. Whether they're right or helpful, it doesn't matter. They think that they are. So every time you feed it a little bit more, it's almost like a dopamine hit. Oh no, I've got it now. I've got it now. If you would just do this, dump this memory space, do this, do that, poke in here, poke over there, and it's going to work this time. And it doesn't work. And you're talking about 15 minutes of load time between each attempt. Absolutely ridiculous. I thought to myself, how different is the disk version of Frogger? The good news is Frogger from Sierra, this exact version, is available in a pristine G64 disk image. That means it's exactly like it left the factory box. No cracks, no hacks, nothing. So I thought maybe I could feed Claude Frogger from disk and compare it against Frogger on tape. Maybe that would reveal something. It did not. All that Claude could do was tell me, this is what I think is the situation, over and over again. And so I tried and I tried, but it did give me a clue that actually let me in on the problem. So Claude was 100% convinced. And by the way, I will export the entire Claude conversation and I will upload it somewhere so that you can download it and see the hours I spent trying to get this damn tape to work. Okay. So finally, at the very end, and you can see it at the end of the text, it says, here's what they did. This tape never worked. Sierra botched it from the factory. What they did was the first file on the tape they saved as a basic program instead of machine language, and that's the problem. So that tape was probably bad from the factory. 1981 kids got that game, and it never ran, and they never figured out why, and they were probably pretty pissed off. That was Claude AI's answer. But it made me start thinking a little bit more about maybe what's going on here. Now, this is something that some of you already know. Some of you have already cracked the code on this one, and bless you for knowing, I did not. So when you do load, L-O-A-D, or you do Commodore run stop, it's the same thing. When you do that, you're loading the first program on the cassette, or the first program that it can find, right? Which is usually the beginning of the cassette. What this does is, it doesn't specify whether it's a basic load or a machine language load. By default, it loads the next program it finds in BASIC's memory space. Oh, okay. So if that's the case, then maybe what we really need to do is load this first program as a machine language command, right? That's interesting because that's what the disk version does. When you type, load, comma 8, comma 1, that loads into machine language. The very first program on the disk runs and auto runs. So this is what Frogger looks like on the with a G64 disk image. It tries to load, it loads this very quick loader, boom, and then it stop that. Then it automatically loads the game, right? On the cassette, you would load the game and then have to run it. The disk doesn't do that. So Claude never really got me an answer, but it did get me something that got me part of the way there. So check this out. So if you were to look at the disk version, which, by the way, the G64 version, when you were to run this, there are 2 files on there, but you can't see them. So what I did is I copied it to a D64 image so you can see there are 2 files. Frogger, first program on the tape, right? And then some empty name. I don't know. What is that? I don't know. But if you were to run this first one, watch this. It loads, but then it just picks up and loads the second part. Why doesn't the tape do that? Why is there a 2-second loading booter that wants me to type something in? What the hell? Well, Claude never really got to the bottom of it, but when I dumped this disk, when I dumped this Frogger disk and fed it to Claude, it said, okay, I think I know what's going on. The first program is a loader that pokes something into memory, which is sort of like a copy protection check. And then when the second part loads, it checks that memory location and allows it to run. And so we started hammering this back and forth, and it turns out, by the way, let me reboot this thing. By the way, if you load this file, okay, so it loaded it. What if you ran it? Nothing. If you do a list, nothing. Claude did analyze and say, you know what? The entry point to this program is at memory location 24079. So try, after you run the loader and give it anything it asks for, run the second program and attempt to do an SYS 24, not 25, 24079. Holy crap, I almost lost my crap, man. We're talking 3.5 hours of trying to get this to work, and we got the code cracked. So I went right back to the tape. I loaded the first part. I just hit enter, let it error out. Then I loaded the second part, ran the SYS, and it worked. And I'm like going, okay, so I do have a version on this tape that works. It's just sort of hokey. But it kept bothering me. How could this thing have been wrong? And Claude was 100% positive the tape was mastered incorrectly, and none of these versions ever actually worked. Oh, yes, but you pay me to be clever. And even though Claude sort of helped me get there, here's the real secret. And again, some of you figured this out. If you look on the cassette, there's no indication of how to load this game. I have no manual. I couldn't find a manual anywhere online. The only manual I found was this frogger.txt file, which basically told you how to play the game. Nothing else about loading the game. And I said, you know what the problem is? I bet it defaults. This can't be right. This can't be it. Is it? No. This can't be right. Comma 1. Load from tape into machine language. Here comes the loader. Found Frogger. It's working. Look, wait, did you see that? And the game actually loads. And I know, because I've loaded this like 10 times to make sure I'm right. So the whole trick to making this stupid game work after 4 hours of digging and suffering and working with Claude, the whole trick was to load the first program, load Frogger, comma 1. Unbelievable, right? So here's something interesting. I went out to eBay to see if I could find a copy of Frogger for sale that might come in the box, that maybe had documentation, complete in box. Maybe it has something that says, how is somebody supposed to know that? Right? It's not on the tape. It has to be in the documentation, but since nobody has the damn documentation, how do we know to do that? You could have bought this at a vintage computer festival and thought you had a bad tape, right? Who knew? Well, here's the eBay auction. $99 they want for this game complete in box, but bless you to this eBay seller. They snapped a picture of the manual, and the manual actually tells you to load Frogger, comma 1. That's the mystery solved. Hours of my life tossed in the bin just to get stupid Frogger working. But the good news is, yes, this tape works. Both sides work. This thing's like 45 years old, and I have a working Frogger for the Commodore 64 on cassette. Very rare, very cool. They want $100 for it on eBay. There's actually a listing of Frogger on tape going for like $300. If you go look on eBay right now, you will see old cassettes. I tried to find Telengard, that RPG game. Forget about it. They want hundreds of dollars. Get the hell out of here. But there you go. My magical random tape bin pull got me a copy of Frogger and an amazing story to tell you. Who knew, right? I would have never guessed in a million years how to do that. So while Claude didn't solve my problem, it at least nudged me in the right direction. And after all of that nonsense, we got it worked out. Listen, I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I've enjoyed telling it. Crazy times. Yes, I've got a whole stack of stuff right here off of camera I've got to get to show you guys from the Vintage Computer Festival. I've got an easy flash to show you. I want to talk about that. I've got this Mach 5 cartridge. I've got this other crazy cartridge I told you guys about. There's a great story behind that too, by the way. You're not going to want to miss that. So if you don't want to miss all this great stuff coming up, I've got probably another dozen videos here I need to do. Like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, but most importantly, get down there and subscribe so you don't miss any of these amazing videos I've got coming for you. I'm Shane Armenroth. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. We'll see you next time.